All right. So hi, everyone. I'm Stacy, Community Engagement Coordinator with the Mental Health Society of Greater Victoria. Today, we're joined by Jon Williams. Hi, Jon. Thanks for being here.
Hello. Yeah, wonderful to be here, Stacey.
So most of us know you from being on the Zone, but you've actually gone off on your own and started your own station. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the long story short is that it's called What Was That? And whatwasthatradio.com is the website of which you could access it. A delightfully simple website as I'm learning how to build them myself, and delightfully simple apps for Android and Apple. It is free to listen to. The focus is on new music. And whether it's built around that alt vibe of where, much like at the Zone at 91.3, you might hear a Daft Punk and then a Metallica, but I mean, you don't hear either of those on What Was That, 'cause there's nothing new they've released in the last 18 months. But it's built off the back of alternative rock, pop, hip hop, and there's some punk and metal as well, but it's mainly that Indian alternative vibe. And it's a radio station foundation hybrid. So everything that I earn, if people choose to support me through subscription signups, which get different extra access to different parts of the website, where there's one huge music hub of music discovery to connect with artists in different ways. Anything that I earn is split 50-50. And then anyone that donates towards that, we come together and choose quarterly, where are we going to put this money back into the mental health of Canada, and with a particular focus on musicians and artists, whether you're a poet laureate. Well, I call everyone a poet laureate because I can't do poetry, so they're all outstanding to me. And just that focuses on making sure that the artists and the communities that we're in Canada, because I can track digitally where people are. So we'll put money directly into those communities for music programs and for mental health programs. And that, in a nutshell, is what was that is a focus on new music, a focus on pure community that build together, and they don't feel like I'm the DJ and you're the listener. We're the family, and we choose how we go about not posturing, but inspiring and uplifting and elevating as many around us in our own way as possible. Long story
That's
short.
that's great. No, it sounds awesome. I have to check that out. How did you decide, or what was the deciding factor to give back to mental health?
Well, just from, I mean, some of your colleagues and friends that we've come across each other the last 10 years, I was abused as a 10-year-old, and that made a very interesting venture into teenage years. And I used to say to counselors and to friends and family that even when I was 21, 22, I still felt that I was maybe 13, 14, with how most others would go through physical interaction and connection as one matures. And so there's always been a focus on making sure that the voices that maybe felt they couldn't be heard, or that were muted because they felt that systems around them were shut up, we don't need to know, or everyone's unique in their own way and they're damn well allowed to be heard. And so there has to be a focus on that elevation of one's mind. And the community that's given me so much here, it's just a no-brainer to me, because musicians and artists suffer, whether you're a shelf stacker, like we all go through hard times. And so we just got to have more and more and more systems in place, and crucially to allow people to know it's okay to be you and speak. If we don't communicate, we don't know, and we can't grow from the haunted past, and we can't grow friendships because we're lying to ourselves and others. Now, that's not a bad thing. You can't force anyone to share what they won't share until they feel ready. But that's where the money's got to go back. It's got to go back to those programs.
That's fantastic. That's, fantastic that you're able to do that for all these communities across Canada, because it's not just in Victoria, it's not just in Nanaimo, it's
No,
everywhere. Even those small little communities, they need help too.
they're the most important. And you look at the radio cuts where DJs have gone from these small towns of 1,000, 2,000 people. Those are like best friends and parental figures and connection. Like, so that's a whole other conversation that we haven't got time within 15 minutes of an Instagram video. But and right now that's very kind. But right now, what I would say is we've just come together with our first. I've earned $8,000 so far in the 4.5 months through subscribers, and that means that there's $4,000 to give back. So we've just decided this past week, Stacey, that we're going to give 1,000 to the First Nations Cultural Council to make sure that they get more money into their music funding programs. We're going to give $1,000 back to the community. It's people that have paid me $84 for the year or $7 a month. Some of them are getting 500 or 200 or 300 back for counseling sessions, because we've seen them sharing in our community on Discord the trouble and strife they're going through, or that, you know, I was just saying in the interview with Sophia, the musician I spoke to before this chat, Sophia Fitch from LA, that one of our community members we've given $500 to because he's been living in a shed that's been leaking with no warmth from Salt Spring, building a house for someone who's far more wealthy, and
Wow.
topsy turvy. So sometimes you invest $7, you get hundreds back. Now I can't say that for everyone, but we will decide as a community through discussion, like we got to help lift this brother or sister. And so while it seems like it's me, and yes, I have the creative control of what was that, when it
Mhm.
comes to how we impact people with our souls and our hearts, we decide as a team, because there's a lot of ego in radio and there's a lot of ego in any role.
Mhm.
And the biggest thing I found was that a lot of the time it was a bit of cloak and dagger of, well, we've said we agree with one thing and then something else has happened. So everyone in the What Was That community knows every move I'm making every day, because transparency to me, won't speak for others, is absolutely key.
That's wonderful. That was really well said there, John. And then the giving back, that's amazing. So just on maybe on a personal note, how do you deal with just with self-care? I mean, we're living in this world, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know if you live alone, but just I do, and it's crazy.
I lived,
Like,
yeah. I've had this incredible thing happen that right before the pandemic struck, I met someone, and then we've fallen very much in love. And Jody is what I'm in her cupboard that she's moved out, her clothing cupboard. This is the bedroom, really. The bed's literally right here. And she's got a wonderful son, Harley, who just turned 7. And so being around them the last few months that I've moved in is incredible. And she can read me like a book. We just know each other. You know, it's like previous life connection, and she just knows exactly where I'm at in every moment and how to deal with it, and is an absolute badass. But before that, when I was living in my bachelor pad downtown in the middle of all the construction of multiple buildings, and it was a real challenge. And that's not to say that it's not been a challenge being here. You know, I made my mind up very quickly to leave where I used to work at, for a culmination of reasons. Felt that there was stunted growth due to people that aren't. I got nothing wrong with anyone on Vancouver Island, due to management systems in major cities on the mainland that didn't know who I was or didn't want to connect with. And I felt that I wasn't being given a chance to give as much heart and soul that I'm just hell bent on doing every day, because this is what I love, is broadcasting and elevating people. And so when the pandemic came about and a few other bits and bobs that will remain in house showed face, I decided within a day, like, if there's going to be a time to get out and start something new, it's now, when the world is going through an incredibly forced change. It's got to be now, because it will enable me to build this radio station and foundation without posturing being a very important sentence that I've thrown onto myself, just quietly. No one needs to be force fed. There's a new radio station in town. It's just we're going to quietly go about it, because I believe that in a year or two, when we get out of this pandemic, that's when I'm going to be ready to start running, which I've tried to do now. So to double back on myself and not spend 15 minutes talking about one thing, my ego has been stripped bare and reset and stripped bare and reset daily, it feels like, for the last 5 months, because I've gone from having an incredible team around me of friends that I've grown from for 10 years. And that is let alone the community around me that listened to me for 10 years and that gave me incredible success in this community in broadcasting for the last 5, especially. And it's been a real trip to then step out of that and be like, right, I couldn't do this. Now I've got to learn how to build apps and websites and music direct and make all these connections and send all these emails. And then why isn't this person emailing back? And then it's just been a massive test of my own grounding, because there's been times when I've wanted to run before I could walk, and screw it, give up, because you've been working for 18 hours and you're tired, bro. The reason why you're losing it is because you're not doing enough self-care, and I'm tired. So I about 8 weeks ago decided that I would risk. I don't consider it a risk. I mean, that's not fair on the gym and the protocols they've got in place, which is only a handful of people at a time. But I had to get back in the gym and exercise, and I need that instruction from someone. Otherwise, I'll just go in the field and do star jumps for 5 minutes and then bugger off. Like, I need someone saying, hey, 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 hey. And that was key. Getting back onto 3 meals a day was key, because I was working, not eating, and trying to get. So it's the basics, really. But it's amazing how quickly we forget the basics. And so I like to say I'm no messiah of radio or community or how to look after yourself. I am aggressively learning more about myself every flipping day in different ways. And all we can do is try to remember, well, I'll speak for me, is try to not, and I still do a lot, to be clear for anyone that's watching this. I beat the crap out of myself, not physically, but come on, Jon, you got to do this. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? You spent too long doing this. You can't waste time doing that. You can't fall in the sludge and then start wrestling yourself in it, because you're going to waste even more and you're not going to feel good for it. Now, that's incredibly hard. Is there an answer to drag yourself out of it? For me, get that smoothie in you, get some exercise done, turn off the computer for 5 minutes. You've been on it for 16, 14, 12, whatever hours. Try and reground, come back tomorrow. And that's been the hardest thing for me, is to go, there's no rush here. Why do I keep putting a rush on it? And there's no answer for it, because we're all unique. And for me, it's just trying to check in with having things that ground me. I'm not even wearing it right now, my gosh, because I rearranged and tidied the desk, and I put, so my partner and I both have these necklaces that I got, and I'm not even wearing it today. So whenever I'm freaking out, I always, grab this and remember the energy of the two of us, and try and ground. As cheesy or as simple as that sounds, it's just trying to take a minute to breathe. I think I just forget to do that way too much.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you on that. It is just the little things and getting into a routine too, you know. So I think we're getting close here, Jon, on the 15.
Yeah,
Is there anything else that you wanted to add? I mean, I think we've got a couple minutes here.
I'm very thankful for the chance to converse, because anyone that's watching this, one of the hardest battles in our lives is looking after ourselves, let alone when you start thinking about the community you're in, your friends. How do you help them? I've had grandparents and family members pass away. I'm on the other side of the world, and we're going through so much aggressive growth of how can we do this and do that. And the number one thing is to not feel bad in taking care of yourself, because you can't care for others, in my opinion, until you're as grounded as possible. And just anyone watching it, just, you're here for a reason, and you're not alone. And there are situations, there are people, there are organizations that are there to converse with you. And much like with me tattooing years ago, it's a case of, you go to maybe 50 parlors, 50 shops, until you find that one that you're like, that's the person that person's going to help. So you can't force yourself to do anything. But I can assure anyone right now that if they put the time in and realize that every day is a constant battle, which is what I've realized for a long, long, long time, then it eases the sludge that you throw yourself into, so that you can actually breathe a bit easier to deal with the aggressive parts of your mindset or your history as an individual. Uh, yeah. Otherwise, I'll start speaking for 48 minutes, and this is only 15 minutes.
No, that's so true. And then finally, before we go here, Jon, how can people tune in, or how can they subscribe as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, if they subscribe, that's a bonus. They don't need to do anything other than, if they would like to, go to whatwasthatradio.com. And at whatwasthatradio.com, they will be able to listen. They'll be able to download the free apps and set up the free Alexa skill. And if they feel that they are discovering, then they can dive in and donate whatever they wish. And if they do donate $7 a month or the 84 for the year, then you'll get access to really the rest of the website. It's a very simple website. The rest lies within, the discovery within, and the Discord. Anyone watching this, please consider going and joining our Discord community, because there is such a diverse range of human specimen in there, and the conversations being had are pure and honest, accountable, and respected. So there is no conversation that can't be had in the What Was That community.
That's great. Thanks so much for doing this and being here today, Jon. Much
Yes.
appreciated.
Thanks for having me.